Yeah, live J5 Uptown Philly. Another delirious 44 production. I mean, we got to give them what they like. But in the process, we gonna give them what they lack.
The intro was for those with attention deficit. You gotta watch the video the whole way through to get the whole song.
Have the board spoken with the Florida Commission and said that anything about this fight, whether they approve, whether they do not approve?
Well, they would have had to, yeah. They would have had to speak to the board, and the board would have had to approve it.
Andy, if he wasn't cleared to fight, he wouldn't be allowed to fight. The ABC have had to rely on the information from the British Boxing Board of Control to confirm that he's cleared to fight. He's no longer suspended. We keep hearing about an appeal. We have no knowledge of that appeal. We have no date of that appeal. What do you expect him to do? That appeal could be next year. What, just sit there when he's cleared to fight? And, you know, I see a lot of stuff on Twitter and stuff like that. We had to go through a process with 4 commissions to make sure that they were comfortable for him to fight. The ABC of America, Texas, the British Boxing Board of Control, and Florida. And they've all confirmed, yes, he is clear to fight. It really eats people up when they say, he's not clear to fight. Of course he's clear to fight.
He's done 12 weeks of VADA. Don't ask if he's UCAD tested or not. He doesn't have a British license. He couldn't be tested by them if he wanted to. The British Boxing Board of Control in this appeal, I heard they delayed the appeal. There's no date scheduled for the appeal or anything. And it's funny, they're putting in an appeal, but what's the truth? It's their testimony allowing him to fight in Florida. The Association of Boxing Commissions in America had to get his fight passed with the British Boxing Board of Control. And they told him he's not suspended. And it doesn't look like they tried to sell them a story like, look, we're appealing his decision. We advise you not to let him fight. No, they gave him the green light. What's this appeal about? Is it about jurisdiction? Which would mean that UCAD have no business suspending him. And that's possibly why the National Anti-Doping Panel lifted the suspension. Or do they think he's a dirty athlete? I don't believe it's the latter. I believe they don't like the way Conor's went about trying to find a resolution. I don't think him not just accepting that, okay, you got popped, let's move on. I think that hasn't helped Conor's situation with the board and a lot of the media who have been perpetuating Conor Benn as the devil incarnate. He threatened to sue the British Boxing Board of Control. It's a fair question. Well, if he's cleared, why not fight in the UK? Well, it means Eddie has to bump heads with the British Boxing Board of Control while they're supposedly making this appeal. And there's no rush to get Conor in a British ring. He's already been out, what is it, a year and 6 months or a year and a half? When this appeal actually manifests, there's a date, and we find out why they're making an appeal, then we'll see what's happening. You know, more than likely the appeal is not going to fly. Yeah? It's not going to fly. I'm finding out that the National Anti-Doping Panel is a lot more powerful than a lot of people realize. So he's got enough certification from Britain and from America, WBC as well, let's not forget, for Conor to fight in Florida. If Conor is successful, they'll be looking towards a resolution with the board to get licensed and set up that Eubank Conor Benn fight. That's the plan. Seems straightforward, but all involved better watch out for the bumps in the road. I'm telling you, I can't see any issues in the immediate future, but we'll see. A lot of people are saying stuff like he shouldn't be allowed to fight, he shouldn't be allowed to fight, when the Florida Commissioner wouldn't allow him to fight without the British Boxing Board of Control's permission, without the Association of Boxing Commission's permission, without the WBC's permission. His suspension was lifted. You know, he shouldn't be allowed to fight. He wasn't cleared. He was cleared. He was cleared to fight. Do you mean, has he been cleared in terms, has he proven that he didn't take anything? Well, let's be adult about this. If you're not a Conor Benn fan, or a Matchroom fan, let's say, you're never going to believe he was clean. And at this point, it doesn't really matter. I don't mean that as to say it doesn't matter if you take PEDs and go in a boxing ring. I don't mean that. Who gets either popped dirty or has an adverse finding proves that they didn't take it 100% to satisfy everybody 100%. Nobody. What I'm trying to say is, at this point here, a year and a half out the ring, Conor has to look towards a resolution to get back in the ring. Now he's made the first step, he's going to have his first fight on Saturday. The next step will be to get licensed by the British Boxing Board of Control. And that's what boxers look towards, and promoters, is a resolution. Because you're never going to make everybody happy. Whether that's Conor, Benn, Tyson Fury, Canelo, Roy Jones, James Toney, and I'm just naming all the big high-profile cases, Dillian, Povetkin, Jarrell Miller. I mean, look at Kamil Sokolowski. Let's bear in mind, the Fraser Clark fight where he got popped was November 2022. So someone had results of his positive test. Someone had them, either the board or UCAD. But yeah, he was allowed to fight in Germany in March. And you could take your pick, right? Who you want to hang, the British Boxing Board of Control, UCAD or Kamil. Nobody informed Khalil's opponent in Germany, or one of the two boards in Germany, who licensed the fight, that he was suspended. And to me, you can't say, oh, well, this isn't a high-profile case. You could have got away with that before social media. These stories are out there on every boxing website where all of you go to get your information to talk boxing. It's not like the Sokolowski-Fraser Clark fight was buried on some obscure card with some small hall promoter. This was on a boxer card with a British title fight headlining. Dalton Smith versus Casey Benjamin. With a world title fight with 3 belts on the line. Natasha Jonas versus Decare. This fight was on a prime time slot in the UK. This ain't just some low-key shit you can just brush under the carpet so you can talk about Conor. No, you're not being consistent. Then again, I didn't hear TalkSport doing post-fight videos on Casey Benjamin versus Dalton Smith. I did. You see, you can't just prioritize Conor Benn because he's more famous. If you're going to be talking like you're concerned about PEDs, you've got to be concerned for the right reasons. Because Kamil could injure somebody in the ring just like Conor could, whether he's a low-profile or high-profile fighter. You got to be consistent. You know, Conor's not fighting under a ban. He's licensed to fight. Sokolowski is out there fighting while he's suspended by the British Boxing Board of Control. So while he doesn't have a license, what kind of testing is he doing now? Fighting while suspended. I can critique UCAD, but they do a way better job at testing British boxers than anywhere in Europe. What testing is he doing now? Now he's suspended, still fighting. So what? The British Boxing Board of Control suspend him and just wash their hands from the situation. Don't even tell Germany that, yo, this guy's suspended. It's not like they can call confidentiality. He's suspended. Why have you not informed all the relevant commissions and board around the world? It's just the email. Surely that should be a priority if any commission or board is taking PEDs in sport serious. Conor hasn't included his name. You're sounding like flipping clones. Why are you prioritizing an appeal by the board over the suspension being lifted by the National Anti-Doping Panel? Why are you prioritizing that? It doesn't make sense. What, because the British Boxing Board of Control are more known? That gives them authority? No. The National Anti-Doping Panel have the final say. Just like when Tyson Fury was suspended by UCAD, they overturned the first suspension. I'm not talking about the backdated ban at the end of 2017. I'm talking about the first ban in 2016. They overturned it. UCAD couldn't do nothing and the board couldn't do nothing. It had to go to some independent hearing. Conor has done 12 weeks VADA testing. You tell me what testing Kamil is doing since he's been suspended and he's still under suspension fighting. That's not a concern to you. You just jump on, follow the popular narratives. Kamil Sokolowski. Is anyone going to be screaming at him that he should serve out his 3-year ban before he fights anywhere in the world? No. Why not? Resolution. He needs a resolution. And he's found his resolution. Okay, I can't fight in the UK. I'll fight elsewhere. He doesn't give a shit. The man has another regular job as a labourer. He's going to get the money in however he can get it. What do you think he's going to do? Do a Conor Benn and sit out the ring for months, hoping that the board can come to a resolution? No. He's saying fuck the board. He accepted a 3-year ban by fessing up rather than 4, but he'd be 40 years of age by that time.
issued on behalf of Tyson Fury, Hughie Fury and UKAD, and I'll just pick through the bones of it. It says that they have agreed to resolve proceedings brought by UKAD, and it goes on to say UKAD's position is that the anti-doping rule violations it had asserted have been committed.
The violations have been committed. They're telling you that Hughie and Tyson were not cleared. The violations were committed. They're telling you. Let's move on.
The consequences set out in the UK anti-doping rules should apply.
The consequences in UKAD anti-doping rules should apply.
However, Tyson and Hughie Fury's position is that they have never knowingly nor deliberately committed any anti-doping rule violation.
Tyson and Hughie are saying they have never knowingly committed any anti-doping ruling violations, meaning they're accepting strict liability. But their defence is they don't know how the wild boar got there.
In recognition of the respective counter-arguments and risks inherent in the dispute resolution process, each side has accepted a compromise of its position. So essentially, UKAD didn't want to pursue any potential legal issues if they were to ban Fury any longer than he has been banned for.
UKAD didn't want to pursue the case any further because if it went into the courts, they couldn't compete with Fury and who Fury had behind him, Daniel Kinahan. They could have went into administration, bankrupt, whatever you want to call it. They had to come to a compromise. And so did Fury. And that's not because Tyson Fury was innocent and UKAD didn't have a case against him. We're talking about court costs, legal fees. That costs money. And them extended trials, if you got long paper, you can break someone who hasn't got as much money as you. That's what happened when Tony Bellew and Frank Warren had their situation. It was about whether Bellew had terminated a contract prematurely. And Frank had him over a barrel. Right? And Bellew was about to quit and give it up. And somebody loaned him the money. Eddie Hearn was involved in the case as well, because he went from Queensbury to Matram. And they loaned him some money to continue to fight his case against Frank Warren. And Frank Warren discontinued the case. Frank Warren was going to break Bellew for everything he had. So when the likes of Frank Warren is telling you that Conor Benn shouldn't be allowed to fight because he hasn't been cleared, well, Tyson Fury wasn't cleared. He got a resolution, a compromise, a backdated ban. You know what's disturbing? Everything boxing. On average, just 9% of British boxers were tested at least once by UKAD out of competition and 18% in competition. Shocking statistics for UKAD, shocking. And then we forget that there was no VADA testing for the main event, Smith versus Eubank. Dave Allen, out of his own mouth, said he wasn't tested once by UKAD in the build-up for his fight with Fraser Clark. No one's asked Fraser Clark how much times he was tested. No one's asked that. And yet, Victor Conte has got some shocking statistics on UKAD, which I'm not going to pull up right now because I'd be here all day. Talk Sport and a lot of these so-called big YouTube channels, they covered none of this. They covered none of it. But when the announcement that Conor Benn is fighting on Saturday in Florida, they pipe up and they've got a lot to say. It was at this point where Eddie Hearn said, fuck it, let's get Conor back in the ring. Nobody's pulling up all the inconsistencies elsewhere. No one's doing as much layers of testing as Matchroom. And he said, fuck it, I'll put what everybody's got to say. Two wrongs don't make a right. But, yo.
Eubank Benn fight, absolutely huge. And I've just now got to the point where I look at all these people criticising within the industry, all taking a piss, not even putting a hand in their pocket to test. And when people aren't testing, then they're coming out, some of the media, and saying, oh, it doesn't matter, there's UK. I mean, and I just think to myself, we might as well just move forward now and fuck what people think, because no one's looking at it with a clear head anyway. We're going to try and make that fight.
Conor Benn takes on Rodolfo Orozco from Mexico. 32 wins, 24 inside the distance, 3 losses, 3 draws, never been stopped. And this is at 154. Conor Benn 21-0, 14 inside the distance. Khalil Cole at light heavy, he's on the card. Austin Williams versus Steve Rolls. Jessica McCaskill, she's got 4 belts on the line against Sandy Ryan. I want to see that. And Richardson Hitchens versus Jose Zabeda, the main event at 140. Richardson Hitchens is extremely talented. Zabeda, a grizzled veteran. Is he up for it? We'll see. And Conor Benn As an addition, yo, it's good news. It's good news. I don't know if I'm going live though, people. It's very late in the morning. I'm not sure if I'll be at my sharpest, but you can expect a post-fight at least. A live post-fight. Now, Tony Sims says that Conor can still make 147, but they're bringing him in at 154, so he'd have to kill himself to make the weight after so long out of the ring. This is just a run out. Will we see any ring rust? Well, Conor didn't want this so-called tune-up. He wanted to go straight into a big fight, but Tony Sims insisted on this fight, which is supposed to be a tune-up. You know, you got to take tune-ups just as serious as world title fights and any other fight for that matter, because unless the fight's fixed, you're in there with someone who's trying to take your head off, at least in theory. He said he's putting the 147 and 160 pound divisions on notice. Called out Triple G. One thing for sure, Conor will be looking for the knockout, trying to slip under his opponent's leads, firing powerful shots, generating the power from the legs. Might take a little time to get the timing how he'd like it, you know, like that bobbing and weaving style. It doesn't take much neglect for that style to be ineffective. The timing has to be on point. It looks like someone's just dipping up and down, but it's more than that, and it's the muscle memory. It's also a style better suited to young fighters. Doesn't age well, but Conor's only 26, but he has been inactive. But he's been training a long while for this fight, around 10 weeks, so if he looks spectacular, they're going to be beating the drum for the Eubank fight. A lot of people are saying, that fight's not big no more. That's nonsense. If he looks spectacular on Saturday, that's a huge fight in the UK. A stadium fight, perhaps? Perhaps. I know he's going to do a bucket load of pay-per-view, though. I know that for sure. If Conor and Brook did 600,000 or whatever it was, which is a good number for a non-title fight, this would do more than that. This would do way more. I mean, Eubank looked really good in his last performance. So DAZN and Eddie and Conor and Tony Sims will be looking for Conor to look explosive. It's a little bit of a shame for Richardson Hitchens. It's overshadowing him, all this Conor Benn talk. But, you know, more incentive for him to look spectacular and put his name in lights.
Yeah, live J5 Uptown Philly. Another delirious 44 production. I mean, we got to give them what they like, but in the process, we gonna give them what they lack. This is hip hop, my friend. And you know me, I'm just a street analyst. I give reality checks. 5 nights, man, gotta be next. Whether written down memoirs or wall for the brain, they ain't ready for what I got to offer the game. Spit it with substance, self-destruction among us. Money is power. Look how far back it flung us. Then they strung us along. Like that carrot dangle, peep the angle. They want another Mr. Bojangles. Coach of Bandit Del Jones, you was accurate. Rest in peace, another activist. Still I am entrapped in this, but my Olympus couldn't capture this. The way I pen it, my incentive to invent it is the young and tormented. They led astray by society. They think that criminal notoriety is real fame. I let them know that it's not so. The main reason they be lined up for my high flow. I gotta give them what they like, man. I'm the MC. That's the MC job. Master ceremony. But these other dudes, man, they trapping. They drinking champagne. Man, need a rapping to me, man. Y'all can't get the job done correctly. This is my craft. Some of them like it, most of them lack it. If ignorance is rampant, you gotta attack it. He think that he trapping, but he done fell through a trap door. She a hit away from a crack whore. We all got deficiencies, imperfections and flaws, and I ain't just trying to point out y'all's, but the balls of these motherfuckers pushing that poison, calling it real shit, and look who employs them. Everybody got a price, they say, but they forget to tell it's also a price to pay. If you lucky, you could pay yours and let her tell about it. If you really real, you never gotta yell about it. If it's principle, I sit up in the cell about it. I was in the shit before, but you could tell I'm out it. It's only right that I speak on it. You know the reason when they play this, they let the levels peak on it. Cause I give niggas what they like. Yeah, we gotta give them what they like, man. This is hip hop. Cause I give niggas what they like. Still alive, man. Even if it's on his last leg, we gonna put that leg back into existence. I mean, they got to feel this. It's the essence of that thing. Delirious 44, Live J5, we here.